So, for all of you that don't know me, I am Akanksha. I have been working with Ember for about 6 years, ever since my third year in college. And Ember hasn't really given me an area to complain about, but it does have its own little quirks. Today, we're going to talk about a deceptively small word in Ember, which is tracked. So, ever since Octane, we kind of, learned that if your app has a state, just slap a track property on it, and Ember will take care of all the re-render for you. Let's take a look at that with a tiny, simple counter example. Seems to be like counter is really famous today. But yeah, as you can see, I say, hey, there's a counter value with initial value 0, and I want this to increment. And this just works, right? I don't need to think of any manual observers. I don't need to think about how Ember re-renders it. It just happens. Yeah. So as you can see, our code in Twiddle, because I made this entire presentation on my iPad, we're using Twiddle, it updates. Now let's say that I have a use case where I say, you know what, my counter is way too simple. I want it to have a color. I want it to have a name. I want it to have other properties. So I essentially want it to be an object. And I want it to do the same things, but just while being an object. Simple enough, right? I'm going to add other properties later, but yeah. Now it has a value key with a value key with a value 0. And I say, hey, increment just needs to kind of fetch that value and update it. And this should work. It doesn't. So here we have it again. I keep pressing, nothing happens. Now you ask me, okay, how do we have this requirement and still make this happen, right? How do we still achieve what we're trying to do? And I show you this. From the first glance, it looks really hacky, and it does not feel like this is going to work. Well, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And that also works. By this point, it's a very fair question if you ask me why. We're going to take a second and quickly look at this. So both of them are the same object, but there's a slight difference in how the increment function is working. And the reason for why this works is because tracked is shallow. What that essentially means is that when you have a track property that has a collection, tracked only takes care of the reference to that collection and not every single item inside of it. All right, let me think of an analogy. Let's say Thomas asks me to take care of a box, right? It's kept there. It doesn't matter what the items inside is. I just need to make sure that it's there. He's coming and going. He keeps placing things into it. Cool. The moment somebody picks it up, I'm just like, that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to move it. And I alert him and I do something about it. So using that analogy, we can now understand why that works. In the first particular code snippet, we do an in-place mutation. That does not update the reference for the tracked property since it points right now to an object, a collection. Whereas in the second code snippet, we are doing an explicit reassignment. And this forces it to have a new reference, which kind of alerts Ember and tells it what to do. Awesome. So, mind you, I said collection, which means that this also applies to arrays, this also applies to maps and sets and any other collection that you can think of. All right, Akanksha, thank you so much for making us aware that, track can be kind of tricky, doesn't really work sometimes the way you want it to. But what can we do? Do we have to do this every time? You could, but that's not really efficient. Or we have an Ember add-on for everything. So you can take use of the track built-in package, which provides you with certain classes such as tracked object, tracked array, set, map, etc. And these classes have the same API as their native equivalent. The only difference is that Ember now also tracks for every single element within them. So you don't have to do all the spread operator situation. Since this is a lightning talk, I am going to wrap this up lightningly fast. And I'm going to come to it that the three key things that I want you to remember from this is that tracked is shallow by design. So you need to plan for it. If you really need to, reach for track built-in helpers. And if you want array-like APIs. And stick to immutability. always try to create new objects instead of mutating them. And if your template ever feels stuck, ask yourself, have I mutated this in place, or have I, given Ember a new reference to work with? Because that may just be the difference between a bug and a re-render. Thank you.
Thank you very much.